So in the garage, I got a 2012 Ford Focus, paid $600 for it. It only has 136,000 miles. Pretty good deal, right? Well, as you can see, $600, you get what you pay for. $600 and you don't get an engine. So I bought this car for $600 and I knew it needed an engine. Long story short on it, the guy who had it before me did an oil change, didn't tighten his filter, ran it for like 60, 70 miles, engine locked up. Locked up pretty good. He was able to get it running again, but it ran like crap and there was no hope for it. Kept on getting the code for the exhaust cam, not getting a signal. And after going through diagnosis and everything and just kind of messing with it, ruled out that there was no computer issue or anything as far as electrical, and it was more mechanical than anything. So let's kind of take a look at the old engine and exactly what happened. So as you look, the engine actually looks pretty clean. I mean, it was well maintained. Oil change was done accordingly as it was supposed to be. But if you look over here on the exhaust cam, yeah, that's chewed up pretty good. But that's not even the best part of it. Yeah, broke the exhaust cam just clean right off. Not to mention all this damage, it just kind of galled and just really ate into the cylinder head right over here. So the cylinder head is junk, the exhaust cam is junk, and this is why we was getting the code, because this wasn't spinning. And honestly, the car would not go over 20 miles per hour, really had no power, and this kind of runs off the this runs the high pressure fuel pump. So yeah, this thing was pretty much done. The oil pan had tons of glitter in it, so yeah, I've never seen anything like this. But for those of you who have questions or doubt about changing your oil and making sure and checking your levels, yeah, definitely check your oil on that one, because this is kind of crazy on that. So one of the reasons why I bought this car for $600 is because the motor is very cheap. So I got this motor at LKQ at the local location, bought it on eBay and just did the pickup, so I didn't have to pay $200 for shipping. This one came from a 2014, only has 100,000 miles, and I paid like $130 for it, and it's in great condition. I took out the spark plugs. Spark plugs look great, no signs of burning oil or anything going weird on that. Spins freely, able to turn this, and for the most part, nothing suspicious to worry about. Now, one suggestion I would give you is if you do decide to get an engine, at least for this Ford Focus, has that whole direct injection where the fuel injectors fire straight into the piston. Well, they get gummed up really good, actually pretty good. This one was also gummed up, and this is some procedure that has to be performed. I think it's every 60,000, 100,000 miles on it. Could cause some issues, but it gets a lot of carbon on those intakes valves. These, let's see if I get it in there. I've actually cleaned them up really good. So this is actually ready to go. Took off the intake, cleaned it off with some scrub brushes, some parts cleaner, all that good stuff. So I got these valves ready to go. Now what I also went ahead and did is just ordered the seals. I'm confident this engine works pretty good, but I went ahead and just ordered seals. Got a new water pump that actually came from the engine right before they blew the engine. They actually put a new water pump, so I got a new seal coming in from this. Got these parts from Rock Auto. Put a new thermostat. Changed this PCV system over here that Ford uses, gasket for that. And I'm also changing this bypass over here and the rear main seal. Now the rear main seal is not leaking, but I'm right here and I might as well change it. So good preventative maintenance. And I think I paid like on Rock Auto for Felpro gaskets and an OEM thermostat like $80. So it's cheap insurance, and based upon everything I've seen on this engine, fairly confident that it should work fine. Now removing this engine was actually a lot easier than I thought. It kind of looks like a disaster and like it was complicated, but it really wasn't. The biggest thing was removing all the wires, and after you remove the wires, these bolts for the exhaust manifold came right out. The fan shroud, the fan assembly, radiator, all right in the front over here, comes out all through the bottom. It was actually fairly easy. Now the radiator support had 4 bolts. It was one over here, one up there on that part. Once that comes out, everything comes out from the bottom, and then you have plenty of room to kind of take this stuff out. I actually went ahead and took out the intake just to give me more room. And once I did that, there's actually a motor mount right over there. There's a motor mount here, and there's a motor mount over there. Once I took that out, used the engine hoist, and this thing was able to come right out. Now, some people suggest that you need to take out the, evacuate the air conditioner and take this condenser out. I actually didn't have to do it. It actually worked out pretty well, and I was able to get enough height, clear it, and come right out. So it was very, very simple for the most part. I mean, I think the most difficult thing was kind of separating the fan shroud from the radiator, and that was about it. But for the most part, this thing came out very simple, very easy. I think it only took like 2 or 3 hours. So now I kind of want to talk about this right over here, and this is a bit of a nightmare in itself. So Ford came up with that whole dual clutch DPS or DCT system, however it's classified, just depending on what website you read it from. And it's got a high failure rate. And the failure rate is actually because the seals that they used. So this car was running fine, it had no issues, but it did have like a wet spot on the bottom, right over here. I don't know if you can see right in there, but it was all wet on the bottom, which would actually make you think, because of the colors, that your rear main seal was leaking. Well, it wasn't the case. If you look inside this housing, you can see it in there. It is all wet, and that's actually the fluid. I think it's Ford special dual clutch fluid or whatever that's actually leaking. But one of the biggest issues is the seals that they use leak, and they would actually leak prematurely. And in this case, it's leaking. So I'm gonna have to change those seals. I had to get on the old eBay, get it through a credible dealer through Ford on eBay, because they have some of those type dealers. Seals come out too for the axle shaft seals, the input, and then there's actually another one right over here. It comes to like $80 for the seals. So after buying the seals, I realized there's actually special tools that you need to take this clutch out. It's like $250 on Amazon. You can't rent it local. And what it does is it helps get rid of these snap rings, presses this out. And once this presses out, then you could go ahead, get inside, and then change the seals. And then to install the seal and even install the small seal on the shaft, you actually need special tools for that, which is like $90. So that gets kind of expensive. But that's not where it ends. You might say to yourself, well, I'll just go ahead and replace this clutch since I'm doing all that. Yeah, these things cost like $600, $800. They're very expensive. Very, very expensive. But then, okay, let's reuse it. Well, you have to buy a tool, which is like another $200, just so you can lock this thing and reset it so you can reinstall it. So you need a tool to take it out and reinstall it, but then to lock it and reset it just to reinstall it. Even though it's $80 in seals, and you'll fix probably the issue, because what happens is that fluid leaks all over this clutch, creates that whole chatter slipping effect on it. And yeah, this one ran fine, so I don't believe it had the issues, but $600, I'm not going to gamble buying another one of these when I'm pretty sure that this is actually working pretty good. It had no codes, it had no drivability issues, but that's a lot of money just to change this. So yeah, I'm gonna have to order all those tools. So even though I got a pretty good deal on this, the issue that you run into is this transmission. This transmission's good and it works good. It's definitely savable, but it's just pricey. And if you're not one that has the tools to do it, which that's where the money comes into, then you really need to wait out to yourself. Am I just gonna install this like this, deal with the leak, hopefully it doesn't get worse and fry it, or fix it right? In this case, I'm gonna fix it right. I'm gonna get the tools, got the seals on order. Even though it's getting quite expensive, from what I paid for this car and what the use I could get out of the tools and everything, it's kind of worth the investment in my opinion. So if you got a 2012 Ford Focus, taking out the engine is the easy part. Buying it is the real cheap part, because I got a whole engine block. But then when you get to the transmission over there and you realize I got a leak, to change those seals, yeah, you got to invest some money on it. So definitely something to consider. So hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see what we come up with next.